tell you how I met Seb, and then we'll work backwards. I met Seb probably in 1975, although he'd been in Toronto before that. And I'd been in Toronto before that as well, but we both started almost at the same time in 1975 at what is now CanH, which was the class. And I think we both came in at the same time and we both sort of new to the place. And then I knew him ever since then until he died. And I kept in touch with him really till he died. He and I worked in the same area with the disagreement. And so we had a lot in common. And he was a very different kind of guy. He was a very unusual, also enigmatic type person. People were devoted to him. He was a kind of man who inspired a tremendous amount of loyalty from everybody who worked with him. And he did it in a way that was a little bit unusual. Hard to describe exactly, but when he ran a meeting, because he was in charge of, I think, the outpatient department at the time. So if he wasn't in charge, most people who are in charge of something share meetings, for instance, if there's a meeting. He wouldn't do that. He would get up at different times, so that every month, there was a different person sharing it. That was unusual. Nobody had ever come across that kind of way of administration before. I remember we had a little bit of a rebellion amongst the nurses that they were slotted to give injections. There were just once-a-month injections that people were schizophrenia with that, and so the nurses were scheduled Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to give injections. And the nurses protested because they didn't like giving injections to people they didn't know. They didn't mind giving injections to their own patients who they were following, but they didn't like being slotted to a Monday where Monday people would come and they've never seen before. So they were unhappy about that, and they were big hubbub about it. And the Tuesday nurse quit or refused to do it. And so Seb became the Tuesday nurse. and we would make fun of him. I mean, we would say, oh, just a Tuesday nurse. Because he would come, he would devote his whole full day on Saturday, on Tuesday, to be giving the nurses. That's a way of, and this is the way he did things. He didn't do it by example rather than. He could also be seen cleaning up the corridors or putting things up in the hallways if the signs or posters were falling apart. He would be the one who would do this. And he didn't distinguish between his job or somebody else's job or something like that he would do. He did that with secretarial staff too, but they objected to. They said their workload was too much, and they couldn't catch up on all the typing. And he would sit down with the typewriter, because in those days it was still typewriter, and he would do whatever needed to be done. He was very. He was very hands-on with patients, so if the patient needed, didn't have pots and pans in the house, for instance, he would make sure they got them. He would drive up with his family to the house and deliver the pots and pans himself. And there's many, many stories like that about him. He also had a very, I can't find the adjective, but a very unique way of speaking. But you didn't quite know when spoke to him, you didn't quite know what he was getting at. It was, I don't know if Maria Odette was like, presumably not, because it was her, she knew what he meant, but often without, he didn't quite know what he had in mind. He could mean this or he could mean that. And it wasn't too clear as to what exactly he had in mind. And he would use analogies. So the one classical one, which I may have put into that little letter of the obituary. I don't know if I put that in, but that was the final thing about sex. When a patient came to him and said, "Oh, my life is awful, my you don't understand, you're taking out my shoes." So he took off the shoes, he took off her and he tried to fit himself into her shoes. So this was the way. I mean, this is just one example of many. And this was sad. I mean, everybody kind of knew that he had this odd, perhaps, but effective, really very effective way of communicating with his patient. He was a very religious man, and I'm not sure I know very much about that part. I'm sure Maria Odette would have told you about that. And almost surprisingly so, because it didn't show up very much at work, but if you went to his house, for instance, he would always say grace, and obviously it was meaningful to him. It wasn't just grace. He would bring out, I guess, the Bible. I'm not sure exactly what he read from, but he'd bring out a text, and he'd read it, and it was very, very important part of his life. And he would talk a little bit, but in snatches, maybe very much in snatches about his past. I mean, it was always very, we never really quite understood, I never quite understood what it was he was referring to.
I mean, what do you know about his family background?
Well, not a lot. I mean, not a lot. He would refer to being a homeless kid on the street, refer to that kind of thing. And to have to beg for money and maybe even prostitute himself. It wasn't clear because as I'm saying, the allusions were so snatchy and enigmatic that you didn't really know what he was talking about. I didn't know what he was talking about. But that was a kind. I mean, you pictured him with a little waif on the street somewhere in Germany, essentially homeless and orphan. I mean, that's the way it seems. What the actual reality is, I don't know. And I never found that.
Did you say anything about when his father was still alive?
I'm trying to remember. I think he did mention his father. Because I think I remember there was a discussion about his father. But actually I can't remember. I actually don't remember what they... His father was from Denmark or something? Or I'm getting it mixed up. I don't know.
You don't know, okay. And did he talk about his mother?
Not that I can remember. No. It wasn't ever a conversation where we talked about family. It was little snatches. So, no, I don't think I ever really knew anything about it with that. Other than this sort of homeless kind of thing, which made you almost not want to ask because it seemed so bad that you didn't want to really go into it very much. But no, I don't think. And how he met John Thompson, I also don't know. He referred to him. But again, in a global way, no specific details that I remembered. He talked about Rosenbaums because he used to go and visit there. And I knew they were friends. I think they were quite close friends.
Did you talk about John Thompson as a psychiatrist? Or anything about patients or anything?
No, I think I knew he was a psychiatrist, but probably all I knew.
So nothing specifically about schizophrenia?
No. Not that I remember.
Not
that I remember, no.
So in some ways, John Thompson arrived at positions which one might see as close to our design. Certainly, strongly recommended Sebastian to get in touch with him.
It's interesting.
And Laing and John Thompson were very close. At one stage they had a meet where they met. Because the students of John who wrote the book Mary Barnes. The physician and patient double autobiography. Made sure that John Thompson met Laing in New York.
Okay. See, by the time I met Seth, which was 75, Laing was sort of passé already at that time. I mean, he'd already had his heyday.
Right.
And it was kind of past that, so I don't know, maybe I missed that.
But passé in what sense? How was he?
Nobody talked about him at that point in 75. Well, I was in England in 65, 66, 67. There's a lot of talk at that point about Laing, and when I came back to Canada in 67, Laing did his trip through Canada at that point. I think he went to British Columbia and got huge audiences, and his book, I think, came out in North America. At least that's just in North America. So that would have been the end of the 60s. But by 75, nobody seemed to talk about it much anymore.
I'm not sure that Sebastian ever, I don't know, I wouldn't know what Sebastian's contact with Laing would have been. All I know is that John Thompson said he said, well, because Sebastian thinks of neurosurgery, psychiatry. He said, well, if you do psychiatry, then contact him.
Very interesting. The person that Sebastian talked about a lot is Maxwell Jones. Maxwell Jones was a big hero by the time 75 came out. And I think Maxwell Jones was still alive at that point. I don't remember when he died. And I believe that, I may be wrong here, but I think that Sebastian invited him to come. Because he certainly tried to institute all of the therapeutic community concepts first into Queen Street, where Sebastian first worked. He worked at the Queen Street site. He was at the Queen Street site, I was at the Toronto Western, and then we both met at the Park site. And I heard about Seb at the Queen Street site, and I've heard about him, interestingly, in relation to the fact that he had brought in this whole interest in art, in the creativity of patients with schizophrenia. And he put on some shows there of art work. So I was just kind of interested in that too, as a Western. So I heard about this man at Queen Street who was interested in the same thing I was, but I never met him then. I only met him in 75.
You know, I mean, what? Do you know what nationality Sebastian was originally?
Oh, I thought he was German.
He's German,
Yeah.
So he was always very open about the fact that he was from his German background, and
Oh, yeah.
he was, I mean, he's absolutely right. He was Roman free, but
Was he?
yeah, he had been in trouble with the police.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, he refers to that, you know, he referred to these things, but it wasn't clear what, why, how, when. Wasn't clear. So his father was German as well. Because it had
Both parents.
Both parents. Okay, that's
from the eastern Baltic region, today Poland.
Oh, okay.
The parents' marriage was on the rocks. The father divorced his wife. Then the father volunteered for military service in the eastern front. And within a couple of weeks he was killed, leaving the mother without even a pension because of the war.
I see. With the two boys.
With the two boys.
So he grew up with his mother?
One of the results of this marital breakdown was that Sebastian was put into a boarding school. It was actually it was a very sort of heavily Nazified school. On the board, it was sort of elite Nazi boarding school. And a lot of his family members have been national socialists.
Yeah, I'm not surprised about that.
So there was and some was Protestant.
So he became Catholic when he married Dorothy.
So he became converted to Roman Catholicism. It was really under the guidance of John Thompson. So he also applied for Laing.
Oh, that was not his name. Okay, I didn't know. That's very interesting. What was his original name?
Flower.
Oh, that's his second name. Of course. That's his second name. Yeah.
But John Thompson actually had him, he was baptized Sebastian Maria. And then passed like that, so he was actually...
That's so interesting. No, I had no idea about that.
Very surprising, like parallel lives. Youngsters with problems and severe problems at a time of immense social justification. That's just very, very interesting.
So where did they actually meet physically?
Well, I can't pin it down, not even his brother can pin it down. But I do know that Sebastian had arranged a flight from his Soviet troops to bring, brought his mother and his younger brother, recuperated themselves together and brought them over to northern Germany. More or less he was supporting his mother who was apprentice as a baker, which was a very good job at that time. And he began to cycle off bread. The baker found out, sort of can be useful and so on, and that he decided that he really had to get away from his mother. As a father, whereas his younger brother is much more attached to him. Did he talk about his younger brother at all?
I knew there was a brother, but no, he didn't talk about it. No, I remember being surprised once when he mentioned something about a brother. He had never brought him up before.
And I can't work out whether it's 47 or 48. It's kind of something like that. By which time John Thompson already worked with UNESCO. Did Sebastian mention this religious community, Eau Vive?
No.
Not at all?
Not to me.
And anything about John Thompson and the Holocaust, for example, anything like that?
No.
He just spoke about that John was a name he mentioned as somebody important to him, or did he talk about him as his father, or what?
Kind of like his father. Yeah, he talked about him. I knew he wasn't his real father, but he talked about him like a father figure. I mean, I don't remember what expression he might have used, but he would have said something. He was like my father. He was father figure, something like that. Yeah, it would be in that context, and the fact that he was a psychiatrist. So I knew he was a father. I knew he was an important person in his life. I knew he wasn't his real father.
Did you ever have a sense of where this John Thompson came from?
Not really. I didn't really have a sense of it. I had an idea that he was French somehow. Interesting that you ask. If you'd asked my ideas would be that somehow this was a man who was in France, that Sebastian was somehow got to France, how I don't know, and that Vlad was in there too. Again, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, well, and I know how Vlad got to Paris, or to the south of France, I think, and that they somehow met, and there was this community of boys that were under the care of this very charismatic guy. That's sort of, that would be what I would have thought.
So, Sebastian knew Vladimir Slavitsky.
Well, that story is very interesting, because Sebastian and I were both examiners for psychiatry, and the exam at that time was twice a year, once in Toronto and once in Montreal. So this time it was in Montreal. We were both examiners. We decided to go out for dinner after the exam. And I still remember, it was very interesting. We had dinner at a restaurant in Montreal that was called Papal Nuncio. And we were having dinner, and I don't know out of how, but he mentioned the name Vladimir Slavitsky. I can't tell you how it came up, but he brought it up, and I said, Vlad, I know him. Because I have known Vlad. I haven't seen Vlad at that point for maybe 30 years or something, but I had known him in university. He had come, when I was at his third year university, he'd somehow come at that point.
This was Michel?
Michel. And he was part of our little group. We had a group of friends who tended to be international people from here and there, usually not Canadian. And I knew him quite well then for maybe a year, roughly, maybe not a whole year. And then he totally disappeared. He completely disappeared. I never heard about Vlad, although we had Alison. I gave you Alison and Bruno. I always kept in touch with Alison and Bruno, and I know that they were continuing to be friends with Vlad, so we had that connection. But other than that, I had completely lost touch with Vlad. I never heard about him. And then all of a sudden, here's Seb telling me that he knew him from this vague, I don't know what, in France. So he said, this is again very much like this, he said, well, let's find him. and we looked him up in a phone book. And we found the name and we phoned there. And he wasn't home, but his wife answered. And so Seb left his name. I guess my name and phone number, his name and phone number. And then the next time that Vlad was in Toronto, he traveled to Canada. The next time Vlad was in Toronto, he contacted me. And then, of course, I actually kept up with him almost until he died. So it was nice, and it was lovely. But the two of them never got in touch, which was too bad. I tried very hard to get them, because Seb was in Calgary then, and Vlad was in Montreal, but traveling, and I thought somehow I could engineer it so that we could all three of us meet together, and I tried very hard, and then Vlad got sick, and Vlad had leukemia, and it was one of his chronic leukemias. But when I found out that he had leukemia, I told Seb, who at that point was perfectly healthy, I said, we better hurry out and have this meeting done, because we don't know how long Vlad's going to live. And then the paradox of that was, of course, that Seb got ill, and he died, of course, first.
Did Sebastian say anything about where they would have known?
I'm sure, he must have, because that must have been the context in which his name came out. I remember, I remember the dinner, and I remember what we did afterwards about hunting up the name, but I don't remember the context in which the name came up. It must have been, something to do with the past, but I still have to remember.
And when you knew did he talk about John Thompson?
Well, Vlad, when I knew Vlad, I met his mother, I met his brother, his brother, I guess. Did you live here?
Michel Slivitzky lived in Quebec.
Yes.
Water engineering, engineer. I think rather like his father.
Oh, that? Is that what it is? I didn't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the son's name is. I think it's Serge. It's a Russian name. I think it's Serge. And I looked him up on Google, and I found him. So he is findable. But he went to school in New Brunswick or Halifax or something. He might have stayed there. I don't know that he came back to Montreal. But Michel would know, of course. Michel would know where. And the son has kids. I think he has maybe 3 kids. And what about the wife? Have you ever managed to... She's a little bit odd, I think. Tanya.
Michel Slivitzky, he sent me several letters of John Thompson to his mother, which were extraordinarily interesting.
Fascinating.
And the impression that comes across him is that, unlike Sebastian's mother, who has John Thompson actually to pay her debt, and just one aspect of her was that she was eccentric. Mrs. Slivitzky is that he admired her enormously. So that she was, I think, I had perhaps John Thompson only had to be close to Sebastian and his brother, because they were to make out for what there wasn't in the way of parenting.
Yes.
Whereas I think
Mr. Slivitzky was a kind of a strong
Did
person.
you talk about Vladimir talk about his mother?
Well, I met his mother.
Yeah.
I met her. She seemed to, he didn't talk to her much, but I think he was close to his mother. She was, I got the impression there was some money in that family because they had come from, or they used to have money anyway, presumably at the time. By the time they came to Montreal, maybe they'd lost it all, but they came from a kind of a well-off Russian family at some point, and then they came to France as emigres, and then of course the father died, and then by the time they came to Montreal, they had lost most of it. But she gave the impression of someone who at least hadn't, at least in the past, she was well groomed and present.
One aspect of the correspondence is that John Thompson was about poor Vladimir.
Oh.
She's someone who was losing his way and was suffering.
Well, Vlad,
was suffering.
as a family, that's very interesting. I mean, Vlad always struck me as one of these people from Russian novels, who's always in pain and always soul-searching and sighing and semi-depressed and but that's, I don't think he was actually depressed. I think this was just the way he was. I mean, that's the kind of person he was. He was always an immensely attractive young man. When I first met him, he was very nice looking and this sort of appeal that was always searching and never finding. And I think he dropped out of it. He never finished. When I met him, that was in year 3, and I think he spent some time then at McGill, but I don't believe he ever graduated. Pretty sure he didn't. And then he wound up in this job, but it kind of, wasn't a great job. And then, I think the marriage was a difficult marriage too. I don't know, I never actually met his wife, but my impression, again, from what I understand, was that she was a little, maybe some years older than me, and she was agoraphobic. She wouldn't leave the house. So it was difficult because he couldn't really go anywhere, and she was always so I don't know at what point John Thompson made these remarks, but I mean, I do think he had a rather difficult life.
Around 1953?
53. That was the fourth. That was the fourth. Yeah. So I would have known Vlad in 50. That's when I met him. That would have been about 53. Yeah. Yeah, I think they just arrived. Yeah, and he was kind of lost.
There's a family called Nationality.
I didn't know that.
I am in touch with the partners.
Oh, okay.
There were 2 psychiatrists in Montreal. One was Dr. Howlett, and the other one was Karl Stern.
Oh, sure, Karl Stern. His granddaughter, actually, was a psychiatrist here. Karl Stern's granddaughter. You'd be interested to meet her, actually.
I was reading a lot of letters with Karl Stern. I went to Milwaukee, so I was looking at the papers of the Catholic Workers Movement, and it was Dorothy Day. It was Dorothy Day's first down and out to John Thompson. She felt the desperate help, and there was just one letter while they were in New York. There was quite a large one from Karl Stern, whom I knew had actually recommended John Thompson for appointment at the University of Ottawa.
Right, he was at Ottawa. Karl Stern was at Ottawa. Right. That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
Where a very devout Roman Catholic,
yes, he wrote a book about that called Pillar of Fire, I think. Did you read that?
Yes, actually. I was wondering, I was actually wondering whether he left any papers anywhere.
Well, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. Well, his daughter lives in Montreal. She's a musician. She's a cellist. She might be a flautist, I'm not, but she's quite well known. And she married a Polish man called Skorzelski. And Anna Skorzelska, who is the mother's daughter, the Karl Stern's granddaughter, is a psychiatrist here, who I know very well. Yeah, Karl Stern is a very interesting guy.
What about his own psychiatry?
Karl Stern? Well, he left his mark on psychiatry, although, again, he cited and talked about it. People still mention his name, and I think at one time, when he was alive, I think he was very, very highly thought of. These days, I'm not sure exactly with what branch of psychiatry or type of psychiatry he might be associated with.
Practice school in Munich.
Oh, okay.
Which is, to say, it's a bit like in Britain, one of the people came to see my Ross. So it's much more, it comes out as this very biological approach, and also in terms of causes of cancer. But quite where he would have then gone, because he writes to Dorothy Day about this idea of a farm sanatorium, which is very similar to Eau Vive and so on. So that I was fascinated by this, which is a therapeutic community.
Yes.
So I was wondering whether there's also been a shift from
I don't think he's associated so much with biological psychiatry. I don't know exactly what kind of psychiatry he's associated with. I don't know. Mainly he was known because of his conversion. That's what people talk about. I don't know, but I know that he was considered a big person in psychiatry at that time.
He has a very, I would say, scientific pedigree, scientific credentials for the basis of immigration. He was for a few years in Britain, and
right.
And there it was. Because he had a genuine reputation.
Right. He married a British woman, I think. I think it was white with British. Oh yeah, yeah. This was manic depressive, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is what Anna told me. Anna talks a lot about the family, but I don't remember the details now.
So that was, Karl Stern recommended John Thompson for the Catholic Medical Faculty of Ottawa.
Okay, but he never came.
No. There's a fascinating correspondence to them, actually, which they were surprised for an appointment which never came to pass.
Like from the girl?
Well,
and you want to see the name? Sure.
So, he was clearly very tentative, but in the end opted for UNESCO. And he's right, John Thompson was right. I just came to Poland. There was the Catholic students still under pressure from the communists, and I see it's my mission to remain in Europe. So that's where the focus on thought is really
Sure. Yeah, so we managed to get in January of 1940. And then we went to France, and we went to Portugal, and then we came from here.
And your background is Jewish?
Yes, Jewish.
What was your parents?
Well, my parents, my father was in the Polish Army. My father had actually been in the Polish Army in the First World War, and so he was in the reserves. And so when Germany attacked Poland in December '39, he went off with the Polish Army, which of course didn't last very long, a big 3 weeks, and he ended up in, I think he escaped, or I don't know, we have his memoirs, but anyway, he ended up in Sweden. And we so we stayed in Rouge with my mother's parents, and then all of us, my mother's parents, my brother and I, and my mother, went to Warsaw first and then south to the town near Krakow, which is called Katowice. And there we waited. My father managed to get us a visa to get out, because my father, luckily, his business had something to do with France, and so he had a French visa, which was able to actually accommodate all of us. And so we left, and we went to Trieste, and my father met us there. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I went to visit the little train station in Trieste where we arrived. And then we went to Paris. My father had a brother in Paris. And we stayed there for 3 months, and then of course we had to get away from there. And so we went south, and my father had another brother in Lisbon. And so then we got to Lisbon, and then we stayed there for about 9 months. I'm trying to remember if Vlad talked about John Thompson, and I knew that his father had died, and I knew that there was someone who helped the family, but I think I assumed it was a relative of some kind. I didn't know any details.
This was help the family to
come to
Canada. You don't think it's John Thompson himself or the Howler?
Oh, I think no. In retrospect, I think it was. It's just that I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that. I don't.
John Thompson was working at UNESCO.
Right.
And he either Michel Slivitzky isn't sure whether he got to know Helen Slivitzky at UNESCO, or whether he actually brought her into UNESCO in order to support the family as a translator.
Okay.
And then he had the idea, he was very enthusiastic about Canada, although he wasn't at all a Canadian, but had done military service in the Royal Canadian Air Force. He had the idea that the family would prosper in Canada. That's quite violent.
Well, maybe because of the French connection. Somehow they would speak French, and it would be easier for them to get on here, maybe.
He was actually converted to Catholicism here in Toronto in 1944.
In Toronto?
So that's the Pontifical Institute here, which is, I think, nowadays the basis of the
Right.
So that more than
you're going to go there?
pages of this.
That's very interesting. I live right next to him, actually. Up the street. That's so interesting.
When there was a French philosopher, Maritain, who was very...
Oh, Jacques Maritain, yeah. Well, Jacques Maritain has a connection with my family. It's so interesting. Jacques and Marisa, who's his wife, She converted a lot of people. He must have been an amazing guy, from all I hear about it, because I mean he had conversions galore. A uncle was my uncle, the one in Paris, who was converted also to Catholicism with recollections and everything.
America, then when John Thompson was this, he worked at UNESCO, lived in a religious community called Eau Vive, where Sebastian used to come for his vacation.
My uncle probably has something to do with that too, I would imagine. So interesting. Yeah, it's possible.
Because what was remarkable about Eau Vive was that those who fought the Second World War, it was, and although it was very Catholic in its sort of religious community, it had the Nazification. They had German Jews, Buddhists,
so
Polish Jews, and Jewish Jews.
So Eau Vive is O-V-I-V?
E-A-U-V-I-V.
Oh, I'm sorry. E-A-U.
V-I-V-E.
O-V. Right. O-V.
And
my cousin would know about that. My cousin, who's my uncle's daughter, I bet she would know about that.
I would be very interested because there was also someone there called Jean Vanier, who was the founder of the...
Oh, the Canadian Jean Vanier. Yeah, oh, okay. Yeah.
Who at the time was Canadian ambassador to France.
Sure.
Now, the origins of Eau Vive, there are two stories which I've seen on the record. One is that Eau Vive was founded, inspired by John's care of Sebastian.
Really?
And there were a sequence of distressed adolescents whom John Thompson looked after there, particularly to keep them out of electroshock and insulin therapy, and to keep them out of the vegetable, it was an anti-psychiatry. And the other story is that John Thompson took survivors from Bergen-Belsen to France, and they were looking up
the adolescents?
Well, sometimes narcotics, particularly, and women, but mentally disturbed, a group of mentally disturbed survivors from the camp. And that is the origin of the community. It's still to be the case. That's why I would be very interested if anybody who knows anything about...
Well, I have to ask my cousin. My uncle had a very strong connection with Jacques Nancy, and that I know. I don't know that I don't remember anything about Eau Vive. My uncle, during the war, got to England and was in the Polish Army in England. As was my cousin, actually. She also joined the Polish Army in exile. No, she was in the French Army. He was in the Polish Army in exile. She was actually in the French Army. She was French. And then, so during the war they were away, but they came back right after the war.
The other person who was also visited Eau Vive was the Papal Nuncio from Harlem, who became Pope John. The sort of meeting point.
Yeah.
He had liberal Catholicism, but it's also a Catholicism that is very, what can I say, inclusive, but the very fervent, mystic sort of way.
Yes, my uncle was like that. My uncle was kind of a mystic guy.
Yeah. Also John Thompson was a very mystic, serious.
Yeah.
But Sebastian was enigmatic.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's this Jewish Catholic synthesis something which, I mean, you say, well, why can't that also be a truth? He was very seriously interested in Judaism from a religious point of view. So, two things belong
together.
Well,
that was very much my uncle. My uncle, who my father was there were 10 siblings, and my father was the youngest boy, and my uncle was the second youngest boy. And my uncle was a very talented artist, even when he was young, and he became quite well known in Poland as a group of Polish Jewish artists. There was a movement there, and he was part of it. And then he, in the 1920s, he and his wife, he just married, and I think Teresa, my cousin, was just born. They converted actually secretly to Catholicism, even back in Poland, but nobody knew about it. And my cousin was a writer; he's written umpteen books on this. And then they came to France, and then I think, if I understand my cousin's books correctly, they kind of swung back and forth so that they were partly Catholic, but then they would change their mind, they would have a change of heart, and they would start synagogue again, and then they would, but the family back home in Poland never knew anything about it. And then I think they got involved with Afghanistan, and then they became more clearly Catholic. My cousin was brought up at convent, and then somebody, got wind of it and told my grandfather, and there was a horrible family scandal, and my grandfather never saw my uncle again. It was he's been a favorite child, and it was so terrible goings on in the family. And my uncle was always, he never rejected the fact that he was a Jew. He proclaimed that. He was very proud of that. That was not something he ever rejected. He accepted he was a Jew of Catholic faith, and that's how he always described himself.
John Thompson, the Rosenbaums are very important as Jewish, and certainly John Thompson was very concerned about the problem way back in the 1930s. When Milton Rosenbaum and John Thompson were together at Harvard.
In the
1930s. General Hospital. Milton thought that they were the first Jewish family in John, and that was then, that connection to the Jewish birth. John Thompson's the godfather of several sons. I think one of the interesting things about John Thompson, he certainly, there was so much of the racism and anti-semitism at that time. He takes a very strong stand against it. Milton describes it as anti-Semitism was sometimes what it's like a disease, something that was done about it. Rather than done immediately, we had to. It was a sense of if there is a problem, if there is suffering, it was the call to assist. So that's to assist the suffering. And it was like a broader sense of medical vocation.